Disappeared from my closest friend's life without warning, fearing the depth of our unspoken love, leaving heartbreak behind. I was closer to him than anyone else in the world, almost like we were telepathic twins separated at birth. When we were together, we could sit for hours in a comfortable silence, feeling no need to fill the air with words. Even when he was hundreds of miles away, if he was in pain, I could sense it. We lived together for almost 3 years after meeting in our freshman year of college. During those years, we were inseparable, always drawn back to each other despite dating other people and making each other horribly jealous, deliberately, I think, as each of us was always trying to push the other into finally taking a stand on whatever it was growing between us. We once drove across the country together, just the two of us, and throughout our long friendship, starting about a year and a half into it, we sometimes made out or fooled around. Every few months, it would just happen, seemingly spontaneous and without any real explanation, though I always stopped things from going further. I had grown up in the rural South, with no experience or language for what was happening between us. The very first time he made a pass at me, I honestly thought he was about to pick a fight, but then it became something else entirely. That first time was the hottest sex I've ever had, different not just because it was with a guy, but because it was with him. There was this mix of wild passion and tender affection between us, nothing like what I'd experienced before. We never really talked about it. It simply became an accepted, secret ritual in our relationship, growing more intense the longer it went on. But we never dated, we didn't think of ourselves as queer, we just existed together in a way that made sense to us. We each slept with women off and on, but it felt more like a Saturday night sport than anything meaningful. Intimacy, we reserved only for each other. Outside of what we had together, we deliberately withheld it from everyone else. The last time we were together, I was washing dishes at the sink when he slipped up behind me and wrapped his arms around me, pressing his lips to the back of my neck. It was the first intimate contact we'd shared in weeks. By then, I hadn't been with anyone else in nearly 2 years. That night followed a dinner where two of our friends, recently engaged, had talked nonstop about their upcoming wedding. He waited until everyone had left to finally touch me, but this time it left me feeling angrier and sadder than ever, even though by then, secrecy was just part of our routine. That night became the last time I saw him. He wanted me to stay, and I did, but a day or so later, I turned off my phone, left town, and disappeared. The last voicemail I ever got from him still echoes in my mind. Please call me, I love you. There was so much pleading in his voice, it almost broke my resolve right then and there. But I didn't call back. I even cut off our mutual friends too, mostly because I knew they'd want answers, and I couldn't risk them asking questions that would hurt him or expose us. To protect him, I let everyone go, figuring at least they would be there for him and could hate me together. It wasn't coldness or indifference that made me do it. I just couldn't explain to anyone how deeply our feelings terrified me. No one else knew the real nature of our relationship, except for one roommate who'd caught us kissing once in college. That did not go well. So I left instead of ever explaining. This all happened about 2 years ago, maybe a little less. For those who wonder why, it's complicated. The short answer is, we love each other, but for reasons I'm afraid to face, we simply couldn't be together. Both of us are guys, 26 years old. He was the only man I'd ever been with, and before him, it was only women. Since leaving, there hasn't been anyone else, not for me. Update 1. Here's what I've learned about how my best friend and lover, Nick, has been doing since I up and vanished. No contact, nothing, for almost 2 years. I finally had the nerve to ask my brother, just kind of worked it into conversation, casually, about what Nick's been up to. My brother told me Nick's been riding a lot, working at the stables, and volunteering at the animal shelter. He's also been out hunting with my brother. The most telling part? He hasn't dated, and my brother said he won't go out drinking either. Too busy playing Dr. Dolittle, as my brother put it with a smirk. I tried to pry a little more, asked if Nick was upset when I left. My brother just laughed and shot back with, "What do you think?" That answer pretty much told me everything and nothing all at once. So this is what I know. After I disappeared, Nick, my best friend and boyfriend, has apparently taken on the surprisingly tender hobby of bottle-feeding kittens when he's not mucking out stables, perched in a tree stand, or riding alone. I honestly don't know what I'm supposed to do with that information. He sounds so withdrawn. He was always the introverted one. Honestly, we're both pretty quiet in person. He's shy, whereas I've always worn this mask of stoicism that probably fools nobody. To most people, he might look the same as always. But I can see this hardcore solitude he's tucked himself into, and it still surprises me. The one selfish relief? At least he's not with anyone else. That's one less storm I'll have to weather. Still, I can't just waltz back into his life after the shock of my disappearance. So, I decided to push back my trip home until next weekend. I needed to send a letter first, something to warn him. No, to give him a real chance to say whether he even wants to see me again. I already blindsided him once by leaving. I refused to do it twice by just showing up. So I wrote the letter. I picked out quality paper, sealed it with red wax, and got it ready for overnight priority mail. Didn't want his address on the actual letter, just his name. Here's what I wrote: "I'm putting my heart in your hands. You did the same for me once and I fucked it up big time. Here's your chance to get me back, one way or the other. I want to be with you, and I'll spend 2 years for every week I was gone making it up to you. I still want us to honeymoon in Amsterdam and grow old with too many dogs and argue about what kind of movies to watch at night. Tell me you'll at least still consider it. I love you, I love you, I love you. Feel free to Xerox this letter and staple it to every telephone pole in 10 miles, I don't give a damn who knows. There's something about handwritten words on thick paper, sealed with wax, that feels heavier, like holding a heart in your hands. Writing him a love letter now isn't new for us. Before things turned serious, before either of us could talk about love out loud, I wrote him my feelings and left the confession under his pillow. Maybe, just maybe, seeing another letter now will bring back those sweeter memories and remind him of who we are at our core. All I want is a chance, for both of us. Update 2. After much deliberation, I sat down and poured my thoughts into a final letter to Nick. I edited out some of the mushier parts. Don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people appreciate those, but I figured those words would be so much better spoken in person. Where I can look into his eyes, gauge his reaction, and make sure there's absolutely no way he misunderstands me. The weight of it all hit me as I wrote my apologies first, my hand almost trembling as I pinned my heart to the page. I didn't want my words to be the only thing bridging the distance, though, so I sent him a mixtape, all these MP3s tucked onto a flash drive. Yes, you read that right. I know it sounds corny as hell, but that's just how we are. We'd always exchanged playlists, not just of love songs but all kinds of music. It's one of those simple, sappy things that makes us, well, us. Say what you want, anyone who thinks that's lame can kiss my ass. I think it's high time I started embracing that attitude, especially with all the courage I'm trying to gather before going back. So, the letter, and those carefully chosen songs, are out there now, carrying a piece of me back to him. Update 3. Okay, so here's what just happened over the last hour. A text conversation that, honestly, shook me. Out of nowhere, my phone lit up. Is this Tobias? My heart leapt into my throat. It was Nick. Nick? I responded, treading cautiously. He replied, I got your letter. I hesitated, then just texted back, and? He didn't waste time. Love songs will not fix this, Tobias. I sat there, words catching in my throat, then typed, I know, I'm sorry. I just thought you'd like it. His answer hit hard. I did, and that's beside the point. You fucked me over and you think a mixtape is going to fix it? I felt so stupid and desperate, my fingers trembling as I replied, I'm so sorry, Nikki. I just want to see you again. I want you to look into my face and see how sorry I am. I'll do anything to make it up to you. Then he shot back, why now, after all this time? Get bored playing Runaway? The sting of that accusation was real. I tried to pour my heart out. I came back because I love you. I never stopped. Please, I just want to talk. I never left because of you. If you want to throw me out on the sidewalk on my face when you see me, I won't stop you. A pause. Then Nick said, how can I turn down an offer like that? You're coming this weekend? Relief and nerves tangled in my stomach. I was planning on driving over early Friday morning. I won't get there until after midnight. Maybe early Saturday morning. I might have to stop and take a nap, it's a long way. Come see me when you get here then. Text me before you head over. I'm serious though, Tobias, I'm fucking furious at you right now. You don't even know. I read that last message over and over before managing to type, I know I love you. His reply was like a lifeline, even through the anger. That's the only reason we are even having this conversation. I stared at my screen, the question I'd been terrified to ask now out in the open, do you still love me? His answer came slowly, I'm still thinking about it. I don't know how I feel right now. We'll talk Saturday. Update 4. Yesterday, at the ungodly hour before dawn, I finally set out for Tennessee. Honestly, after all the nerve-wracking anticipation, the pacing back and forth in my tiny apartment for 2 days, and working myself up into a frenzy, I just got behind the wheel and drove. The road trip itself was a dull blur, just me and the radio, belting out songs like nobody could hear. Truly, if there was entertainment value, it'd only be from that. Around 11, stomach growling, I grabbed a quick fast food lunch and succumbed to exhaustion in a cheap motel, sleeping 6 straight hours. Bad move. Waking up just before 6 meant plunging myself headlong into hellish Friday rush hour traffic. When I stopped for gas, I shot a text to Nick, telling him my location. Half of me was petrified he'd changed his mind after the previous night, that I'd be greeted with silence. But almost immediately, he texted back. Every buzz of my phone made my heart race. He told me to let him know when I got to town, and when I warned him it'd be late, he said he didn't care. After what felt like eternity crammed into my car, I finally rolled into town around 1:45. I texted Nick again, announcing my arrival, and all he said was, come on over. I swear, my nerves were never so shot as in those few minutes, pulling up to his place after 2 years. His home sits in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by sleeping horses and lonely gravel roads that force you to take it slow. When I finally pulled up to his double-wide trailer, go ahead and laugh, but trust me, it has its own odd charm. 2 dogs burst out of the dog door, barking and flanking the car from the gate like their job depended on it. I kept imagining, in vivid detail, how I'd managed to run over one of them. A perfect disaster for a first reunion after all this time. Turning one of his dogs into a road pancake felt somehow inevitable. Thankfully, country dogs know their survival game. They smartly cleared out of my path, and then, suddenly, Nick was at the door. It hits me that I've never described Nick before, at least not properly, maybe because it always felt superfluous. To me, he looks like a scruffy Paul Rudd, but with something more intense lurking there. His dark brown hair has grown out since I last saw him, now brushing his collar. Not that he was wearing a collar, only a pair of hospital scrub pants, nothing else. And those eyes, that deep slate gray, like storm clouds rolling in. As I got out, still half distracted by the overly friendly dogs, he stood silent, leaning into the porch post, his face perfectly neutral. I abandoned my stuff, words escaped me. Every smooth line I'd rehearsed vanished as he strode forward and wrapped me hard in his arms. And then I lost it, just started sobbing, total ugly cry, like a child lost too long. All my bravado gone. I couldn't force out a word, much less the greetings I'd practiced the entire drive. Nick didn't flinch. He just held me, muting my blubbering with gentle shushing. Anyone else and I'd be mortified, but there, clinging to him, it was just relief. Eventually, I pulled back, and with a nod toward the house, he said he'd get my bags. I went ahead, opening the doors, stepping into a place achingly familiar and yet different. The one noticeable change, now a TV dominated a corner, otherwise it was like a bibliophile's mission control. Books everywhere, on the coffee table, nightstands, the floor, the counter. It's almost a miracle he hasn't started building furniture out of paperbacks. It's cluttered with reading, but otherwise impeccably clean, and I love it. He followed inside with my backpack and the dogs in tow, me feeling extra awkward, worn out from the road and now mortified from my emotional explosion. Go to bed, Nick said, not a suggestion but a command. I wouldn't dare argue for couch duty, not with that look in his eyes, a low simmer of anger, but I could tell the only reason I wasn't getting a full-on lecture was because I looked so wretchedly tired. I made my way to the bedroom with him trailing behind, tossing my bag in the corner. I stripped and sank under the sheets. He was already sitting up in bed, book in hand, had probably been waiting like that for hours. He shut out the dogs, turned off the lamp beside him, and got in bed on his side, hands behind his head, staring upward into the pitch black. No streetlights out here. Once the lamp snapped off, we were two shadows in the dark. The silence terrified me more than if he'd yelled. I needed to know what he felt, even his anger, more than this emptiness where nothing was said. It was as if he'd walled himself off. The change chilled me. I rolled away from him, eyes stinging, teeth clenched to hold back more tears. Seconds, or hours, it's hard to tell, passed and then I felt the bed shift as he curled in behind me and draped his arm across my waist. I broke down again, apologies tumbling out, but he only hushed me, whispering, "It's okay, Tobias," over and over until I drifted off, a first for me, falling asleep in someone's arms after nearly 2 years alone. There's a lot left to work through, healing won't be instant. We both have our baggage, and I know we have heavy conversations ahead. But right now, I feel hope that we're finally starting to mend, to get it all back. And the best part? He loves me too. So here I am, writing this while Nick is fast asleep beside me, heart heavier but strangely lighter than it's been in ages. I promise, soon I'll share more about what we talked about once I get my head around it, and when I'm not risking him walking in and catching me typing away like this. For now, this is enough, maybe more than enough. Update 5. I woke up around 10 to the smell of bacon and coffee drifting through the trailer. For a split second, I forgot where I was, then it all came rushing back. The drive, the tears, Nick's arms around me in the dark. I could hear him moving around in the kitchen, the soft clink of dishes, and my stomach clenched with nerves all over again. When I finally dragged myself out of bed and shuffled to the kitchen, he was standing at the stove in those same scrub pants, hair sticking up in the back. He glanced over his shoulder when he heard me, and for just a moment, his face softened. Then the walls went back up. "Coffee's on the counter," he said, turning back to the pan. I poured myself a cup and sat at the small table, watching him move around his kitchen like I was a stranger. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Nick, eat first," he cut me off, sliding a plate in front of me. "Then we talk." The food was perfect, of course. He always was a better cook than me. We ate in silence, the only sounds the scrape of forks and the distant whinnying of horses outside. I kept stealing glances at him, trying to read his expression, but his face was a mask. When we finished, he cleared the plates without a word, then sat back down across from me, hands folded on the table. "So," he said, and his voice was carefully controlled. 2 years, Tobias. 2 fucking years. I opened my mouth to apologize again, but he held up a hand. "No. You had your chance to explain in that letter. Now it's my turn to talk, and you're going to listen." The next 20 minutes were brutal. He told me about the weeks after I disappeared, how he'd driven to every place we'd ever been together, looking for me. How he'd called my job, my family, anyone who might know where I'd gone. How my brother had finally told him I was figuring some things out but wouldn't say more. "Do you know what that did to me?" His voice cracked slightly. "I thought you were dead, Tobias." Or that I'd done something so terrible you couldn't even stand to look at me. My throat burned. Nick, I never meant. I know what you meant, he said sharply. You meant to save yourself. You got scared of what we meant to each other, and you ran. Like a coward. The word hit me like a slap, mostly because it was true. You're right, I whispered. That seemed to take some of the wind out of his sails. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face with both hands. The thing is, he said after a long pause, I understand why you did it. I was scared too. We both were. But I would have worked through it with you. We could have figured it out together. I know that now. Do you? He looked at me intently. Because I need to know this isn't going to happen again. I can't go through that twice, Tobias. I won't. Before I could answer, his phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it and frowned. Shit. I forgot I'm supposed to meet Sarah at the shelter this afternoon. Sarah? Something cold twisted in my stomach. Nick must have seen my face because his expression shifted, became almost satisfied? Yeah, Sarah. She's been helping me with the animals. We work together most weekends. He stood up and grabbed his phone, typing out a quick response. I sat there, jealousy eating at me like acid. In all my fantasies about coming back, I'd never really considered that he might have moved on, at least partially. I should cancel, he said, but he was watching me carefully as he said it. No, I managed. Don't cancel on my account. A slight smile played at the corners of his mouth. Actually, why don't you come with me? Time you met Sarah anyway. The drive to the animal shelter was tense. Nick had thrown on a flannel shirt but left it unbuttoned, and I kept getting distracted by the way it fell open when he shifted gears. He caught me staring once and raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. Sarah turned out to be a petite blonde with bright eyes and an easy laugh. She greeted Nick with a hug that lasted just a beat too long, and I felt that familiar surge of possessiveness I'd tried so hard to bury. So you're the famous Tobias, she said, extending her hand. Nick's told me so much about you. I glanced at Nick in surprise, but he was already heading toward the kitten room, leaving me to follow. The next few hours were torture. Sarah was sweet, competent, and clearly adored Nick. Worse, they had an easy rhythm together, finishing each other's sentences, sharing inside jokes. At one point, while I was cleaning out a cage, I looked up to see her fixing his collar, her hand lingering on his chest. Thanks, sweetheart, he murmured, and I had to grip the cage bars to keep from saying something I'd regret. On the drive home, I couldn't hold it in anymore. So, Sarah seems nice. She is. How long have you two been working together? Nick glanced at me sideways. About a year. She started volunteering right after her divorce. Divorce? I tried to keep my voice neutral. Messy one too. Her ex was a real piece of work. We pulled into his driveway, and he turned off the engine but didn't get out. Instead, he turned to face me. You're jealous, he said. It wasn't a question. I don't have any right to be jealous. No, you don't. His voice was quiet but firm. But you are anyway. I couldn't deny it, so I didn't try. For what it's worth, he continued, nothing's happened between Sarah and me. But she's been there for me, Tobias. When I was at my lowest, when I couldn't get out of bed some days, she was the one who dragged me to the shelter, gave me something to focus on besides missing you. The guilt was overwhelming. Nick, I'm so sorry, stop apologizing. He got out of the truck, and I hurried to follow. Inside, the tension was thick enough to cut. Nick busied himself with feeding the dogs while I stood awkwardly in the doorway. Finally, he looked up at me. I need some air, he said. Want to see the horses? We walked out to the pasture in the fading afternoon light. The horses came over to the fence, and Nick pulled carrots from his pocket, feeding them while I watched. There was something so peaceful about him in that moment, so right, that it made my chest ache. This is what I've been doing, he said softly. Taking care of things. Animals don't leave, Tobias. They don't disappear in the middle of the night because they're scared of what they feel. I deserve that. He turned to look at me, leaning against the fence. The question is, what are you going to do now? Because I can't live in limbo anymore. Either you're here, really here, or you're not. Before I could answer, a truck pulled into the driveway. Nick's expression darkened. Shit. That's my brother Jake. I forgot he was stopping by. A tall man with Nick's eyes but broader shoulders climbed out of the truck, carrying a six-pack of beer. His gaze landed on me and narrowed. Well, I'll be damned, Jake said, walking over. The prodigal son returns. The hostility in his voice was unmistakable. Jake, Nick warned. No, it's fine, little brother. I've been wanting to have a word with your friend here. Jake stopped right in front of me, close enough that I could smell the beer already on his breath. You got some nerve showing your face around here. Jake, stop. But Jake wasn't done. Do you have any idea what you did to him? The shape he was in after you pulled your disappearing act? I know I hurt him. Hurt him? Jake laughed bitterly. Man, he couldn't function. Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I had to practically move in here for the first month just to make sure he didn't do something stupid. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? Nick grabbed his brother's arm. Jake, that's enough. But Jake shook him off. Nah, he deserves to know. Found you passed out in the barn one night with an empty bottle of bourbon and Dad's old hunting rifle, didn't I, Nick? The world tilted. I looked at Nick, who had gone pale, his jaw clenched tight. You didn't, I whispered. It wasn't like that, Nick said quickly. I was in a bad place, but I wasn't going to. Bullshit, Jake interrupted. If I hadn't come looking for you that night, nothing would have happened, Nick finished firmly. But his eyes wouldn't meet mine. Jake cracked open a beer and took a long swig, still glaring at me. So what's your plan now, hotshot? Gonna stick around this time, or are you planning another midnight exit? I wanted to punch him, but I couldn't, because everything he was saying was true. I'm not leaving, I said. Right. Jake snorted. That's what you said last time, isn't it? I never said that last time, I shot back. I never said anything. That was the problem. Jake, please, Nick stepped between us. Just go. We'll talk later. His brother studied him for a long moment, then nodded grudgingly. All right. But I'm checking on you tomorrow, whether pretty boy here likes it or not. He climbed back in his truck and drove off, leaving us standing in the gathering darkness. The horses had wandered away, and the only sound was the chirping of crickets. Nick, I started, but he was already walking back toward the house. I need a shower, he said without looking back. I followed him inside, my mind reeling. The thought of Nick alone in that barn, drunk and desperate, made me physically sick. I'd done that to him. My cowardice had nearly cost him everything. While he showered, I sat on his bed, staring at the wall. When he came out, hair damp and wearing only a towel, I looked up at him. Were you really going to? I couldn't finish the question. He was quiet for a long time, pulling clothes from his dresser. I don't know, he said finally. I was pretty drunk. And angry. And hurt. I kept thinking about how you'd rather disappear than face what we meant to each other, and I wanted the pain to stop. Tears spilled down my cheeks. God, Nick. I'm so sorry. He pulled on boxer briefs and came to sit on the edge of the bed, close enough to touch but not touching. The thing is, he said quietly, I understand now why you ran. Because sitting in that barn, holding that rifle, I was more terrified of what I was feeling than of dying. And that's fucked up, isn't it? I reached for his hand, and this time he didn't pull away. We're both fucked up, I said. He actually smiled at that, just a little. Yeah, we are. We sat in silence for a while, his hand warm in mine. Finally, he spoke again. I can't promise this is going to be easy, Tobias. I'm still angry. I still don't trust you completely. And there's Sarah. My heart clenched. What about Sarah? He looked at me then, and I saw something I couldn't quite read in his eyes. She asked me out last week. The bottom dropped out of my world. What did you tell her? I told her I needed time to think about it. I felt like I was drowning. And? Have you? Thought about it? He squeezed my hand. Every day since I got your letter. The silence stretched between us, loaded with everything we weren't saying. Outside, one of the dogs barked once and then fell silent. I need you to understand something, Nick said finally. If we do this, if we try again, it can't be a secret anymore. I won't hide what I am, what we are, not for anyone. Not even for you. The fear rose in my throat, but I pushed it down. Okay. I mean it, Tobias. No more pretending we're just friends. No more stopping things before they go too far. Either you want all of me, or you don't want any of me. I thought about everything I'd learned in the past 2 years, about myself, about what mattered, about what I'd lost by running away. Then I thought about Sarah, about the way she'd looked at him, about how close I'd come to losing him forever. I want all of you, I said. He studied my face for a long moment, then leaned over and kissed me. It was soft at first, tentative, like he was testing whether I'd pull away. When I didn't, when I kissed him back with everything I had, he deepened it, his free hand coming up to cup my face. When we broke apart, both of us breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. I still love you, he whispered. I never stopped. I love you too. He pulled back to look at me. But if you run again, I won't. If you run again, he continued as if I hadn't spoken, that's it. I'll move on with Sarah or someone else, and you'll never get another chance. Do you understand? The threat was real, and we both knew it. But so was the promise in his eyes, the possibility of everything I'd been too scared to reach for before. I understand. He nodded once, then stood up and held out his hand. Come on, he said. Let's go make dinner. And tomorrow, you're coming to Sunday dinner at my mom's. Time you met the whole family properly. As I took his hand and let him pull me to my feet, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 2 years. Hope. Real, solid hope that maybe, just maybe, we could make this work. But first, I had to figure out what to do about Sarah.